But then, Gurney's entire life seems to have been a kind of time dislocation, ideas out of time, and inventions whose real impact would be of another generation as well. I'm John Lienhardt at the University of Houston, where we're interested in the way inventive minds work.
A transcript of this Engines of Our Ingenuity episode, number 2052. Is online at uh.edu/engines. Additional episodes are available by podcast.
(8:49) Monday morning here on KSJE. It's time for our Monday Reboot segment. That's when I get to talk technology with Lewis Campbell from Synergy Computer Systems here in Farmington. Lewis is joining me this morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Greetings.
Good to see you and hear you. Thank you for being with us. And gosh, I don't know where to start this morning to talk about what's been going on. But what have you got to share today?
Well, I have something a little ancillary but interesting. In the state of Michigan, there's a bill being proposed in the legislature to allow computer programming classes to count as the foreign language credit.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
To encourage, STEM and that kind of thing. And you know me, I'm a computer geek, so I'm all for it. Yeah. Although I do think it's important to learn other actual spoken foreign languages too, but I'm still for that.
Interesting. Okay. And so that's a proposal, right? It hasn't been approved yet in Michigan, right?
Yes, it's proposed.
Gotcha. Okay. Very interesting. I'm trying to think of some other things that I wanted to ask you about this morning. Any idea, I think we talked about this in the past, about the cryptocurrencies that have been up and down, and of course that's the nature of the business, right? That they're up and they're down. But what's going on there? Do we know?
Well, there's a lot of things going on. Cryptocurrency is still pretty volatile, and it depends on the news. So, there were some announcements by some governments and things of that nature. I would say right now, people panic. It's down. Bitcoin is down to only $36,000 a coin.
Right.
Oh my gosh! It's like, are you kidding me? But I think, with all the stuff that's going on with cryptocurrency right now, it's very, very interesting to see how that, to see how that's going to affect in the long run. I think people are still looking at cryptocurrency as an investment, right? We look at it in terms of how the price is going up and down, and do we want to invest in it? I think the most important thing, though, is to look at cryptocurrency is not. It was never intended to be an investment. It was intended to be a monetary system,
right?
To basically replace other monetary systems. So, I think it's interesting to see it going up and down. But the more interesting thing is going to be as it's more widely adopted. To that end, I think a lot of the cryptocurrency that went down this last few days was because of, Elon Musk saying, "Oh, we're going to take Bitcoin," and then saying, "Oh, we're not going to take Bitcoin."
Right. But isn't that what you don't want to happen with a monetary system, that one person can have such a big impact on its value?
Yeah, that you don't want that to happen, but that we're in the nascent stages of this, right? If any form of cryptocurrency takes off, and starts being used widely over a long period of time, then the impact of a single individual or a single company or a single entity won't be as high. And the important thing, I think, with cryptocurrencies, and particularly with Bitcoin, is that over the long term you see it being adopted more and more and more. And that's why the value of it keeps rising. But stay tuned to this channel. It's right. I honestly personally feel like there's no way to put this genie back in the bottle, right?
Oh, no.
Ultimately, people are going to start, it's going to grow more and more and more.
But I think, like any genie, I think you've got to use caution if you want to mess with it.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you're looking at it as investment, which is not what it was intended for, then you got to. And but let's look at, let's switch to our monetary hat here. And again, the disclaimer: this show does not. This is not financial advice,
Oh, no.
right?
Believe me. Do the opposite of what I do. That's what I would tell everybody.
Switching to our monetary hat, anything that's volatile and risky but has great potential, what do you do with it? What's the standard? You don't do short term. You don't day trade with it. You if you're going to use it as an investment, you buy it and you leave it alone for multiple decades or whatever. And I think that's barring some new technology that totally breaks the blockchain. Which we won't talk about quantum computing here. We don't have enough time on this show. But barring some new technology that totally breaks the blockchain, I think it's gonna grow. Long term.
Well, we'll see. But it's just it's a roller coaster ride. So I guess just strap in and hang on is what they say, right? I wanted to ask you a bit about the story from Reuters about Huawei. Remember them? This was that Chinese technology company, right? And the U.S. has put sanctions on them. They were trying to get some, I think, cell phone contracts or tower contracts or things, and there was some concern. Anyway, their CEO is urging a shift to software to counter U.S. sanctions on their hardware.
Oh, that's interesting.
What do you think?
So I'm going to confess that I have not read about this at all. So I'm shooting from the hip here, but it's an interesting approach. So I'm assuming that what they're talking about is their software offerings that do the same thing, and that would be really much harder for any country to regulate, right? Because there's no physical thing that you're banning in terms of import and export.
Right.
So yeah, that seems to me like a pretty aggressive shot, because you couldn't interpret that as anything other than kind of a bad hand gesture into the face of the U.S.
Right, there you go.
But then what do I know?
Well, but it's definitely a big turnaround, right? Because they were building handsets, phones, and and they got slapped with these sanctions, and so I mean they've been crippled, is what this article says, by these sanctions, because obviously the U.S. is a pretty good, lucrative market for cell phones and technology and hardware, and so it sounds like this is one thing they're trying to do to keep the company competitive and shift to maybe working on some software. They're talking a little bit about some of their cloud systems and operating systems, maybe for their handsets, but maybe throw their R&D into that instead of
changing
hardware.
their business model, and that makes sense. But it's and I'm sure they're doing it for the survival of the company as much as other reasons. But again, it's it is a direct kind of flying in the face of U.S. sanctions. But what else are you going to do if you're a Chinese company that's been sanctioned by the U.S. and your profits are going down, your revenue's going down? So.
Very true. All right, one last story that I wanted to share with you from The Verge. Our favorite company, Tesla, is facing fines in Norway for throttling battery charging speeds. And the Norwegian government has ordered Tesla to pay $16,000 to thousands of customers because of this.
Yeah, and that's interesting to me. So that's the first I've heard so far of any, we hear all the time of companies trying to, I won't use the word cheat because it's arguable whether it's cheating, but trying to throttle internet, ISPs trying to throttle internet speeds in order to, give preference to one service or customer over others. But throttling charging speeds, that's different, basically saying, so if people who don't understand what that means, to throttle something basically means instead of allowing it to charge, in terms of batteries, instead of allowing it to charge as fast as possible, they deliberately control the charging speed so it charges slower than it could.
Right.
And and when we talk about throttling internet speeds, we're talking about the same thing, like an ISP that says, gee, Google has a contract with me, but Yahoo doesn't. So anytime somebody uses Yahoo, we're going to deliberately slow down their access. That's throttling speeds on the internet. So this is interesting. My question would be, why? Why would they be throttling those speeds?
Right.
And so obviously, if Norway is fining them for it, there must be, they must be positing a reason for that.
Right. Well, the complaint, according to the article, again says that it was affecting the battery life and the range of the Tesla vehicles. These were Teslas built between 2013 and 2015, which sparked a complaint by these Tesla owners in Norway. So.
Yeah. But again, my question would be why? Why in the world would Tesla want to slow battery charge speeds? I mean, that's a curious thing to me.
Right. It looks like it was some kind of a software update in 2019 that affected battery life in Teslas.
Yeah.
So,
so it could have been like unintentional, and they're just suing them for lack of negligence or whatever.
Right.
So.
Anyway, interesting. We'll see what happens. I guess they could pay it in Bitcoin, and that brings us full circle.
Ooh.
Right?
Hand gestures.
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
There you go. All right. Well, Lewis, we're out of time with that interesting comment, but we're out of time, and so we'll talk again next week.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Scott. Have a great week.
You too. Thank you very much. That's Lewis Campbell, everyone, from Synergy Computer Systems. He's with me on Mondays. We talk technology right here on KSJE Farmington.
Travel